YouTube
Ladies
channel.
and
This is a
gentlemen,
big
Raider
episode
Nation,
for us.
Buckle up
because this is
tonight
our
we're diving
first
headfirst into the
video
silver and black
episode
storm
of the Bill
that's
Simmons
brewing in the
podcast
desert.
on Spotify.
Imagine
Every
this,
episode,
a coaching legend, a guy who's danced with Super Bowl glory and built dynasties, now staring down the barrel of a 3-game skid at the ripe old age of 73. Is Pete Carroll the steady hand the Las Vegas Raiders need, or is Father Time finally calling an audible on one of the NFL's all-time greats? I'm your host, the voice of the Raiders roller coaster ride, and folks, we've got a lot to unpack tonight. From the highs of that shocking Week 1 upset to the gut-wrenching lows of this latest spiral, let's break it all down, because if there's one thing we know about the Raiders, it's that they never do anything halfway. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? It was just this past offseason when Raiders owner Mark Davis pulled off what felt like a Hollywood plot twist. After cycling through head coaches like a bad Vegas slot machine, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pierce, you name it, Davis went all in on nostalgia and experience. Enter Pete Carroll, the architect of Seattle's glory days, the man who turned the Seahawks into a perennial powerhouse. Hired as the 23rd head coach in franchise history, Carroll wasn't just a hire, he was a statement. "We're bringing stability," Davis said at the presser, his eyes gleaming under the Allegiant Stadium lights. "Pete's the guy who's gonna steady this ship." And hey, on paper, it sparkled. Carroll, fresh off a brief sabbatical teaching at USC, where he once built a college juggernaut that nearly toppled the pros, seemed like the perfect bridge between the Raiders' wild, freewheeling past and a disciplined future. But fast forward to now, September 29, 2025, and the Raiders sit at a woeful 1-3, with a point differential that's screaming -22. That lone win, a gritty, come-from-behind thriller against the New England Patriots in Week 1, where the Silver and Black clawed their way to a 24-20 victory on a last-second field goal that had Raider Nation erupting from Oakland to Vegas and everywhere in between. Remember that. The crowd at Allegiant, that gleaming $1.8 billion palace on the Strip, shaking the foundations as Geno Smith, Carroll's own protege from Seattle, fired a dart to Davante Adams for the game-tying score. It was magic, pure Raiders magic. But since then, it's been a 3-game nosedive that's got fans questioning everything. Losses to the Chargers, Broncos, and now a heartbreaker to the Chiefs. Yep, those Chiefs, our eternal AFC West nemesis, have turned optimism into outright angst. And into this firestorm steps Bill Simmons, the pod king himself, dropping truth bombs on his Bill Simmons podcast that echoed across the league like a thunderclap. "We need to have a real convo about Pete Carroll," Simmons said, his voice dripping with that signature mix of sarcasm and insight. "The Raiders are one of the 3 worst coached teams out there. They do really stupid game management stuff. They seem unprepared. They're sloppy. I don't know how they beat the Pats in Week 1 because I think the Pats are just better than them." Ouch, right? Simmons didn't stop there. He went full elder statesman mode, pondering the unponderable. "Maybe we're really pushing it when we get to the mid-70s. Like, it might be too much. I only can judge it from the people in our life that have been that age or higher, and it's just like, I don't know if they should be running an NFL team against people who are like in their 30s, like Ben Johnson." Bill's got a point, doesn't he? Carroll's 73, Geno Smith's a spry 34, that's a 39-year gap, folks. That's not a generation, that's a whole era. Think about it. When Carroll was winning his first Super Bowl with the Seahawks in 2013, Smith was still slinging passes at West Virginia. Now, their quarterback and coach, trying to sync up in a league that's younger, faster, and more analytics-obsessed than ever. But let's pump the brakes for a second and zoom in on the tape, because this skid isn't all on the graybeard at the helm. No, sir. The Raiders' issues run deeper than a single late-game call or a questionable challenge flag. Take that Chargers game in Week 2, a 27-17 thud where the Bolts' Justin Herbert carved up the secondary like it was Thanksgiving turkey. Carroll opted for an aggressive 4th-down gamble early, but it backfired spectacularly, leaving the defense gassed and the offense in catch-up mode. Then came Denver, where the Broncos' up-tempo attack exposed what looks like a disconnect in the huddle. Geno Smith, bless his competitive soul, completed 68% of his passes for 285 yards and a pair of scores. But those 2 picks? Costly. And against Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes did what Mahomes does, torched them for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns, while the Raiders' vaunted defense, led by the indomitable Max Crosby, managed just 1 sack. In a rivalry game that dates back to the AFL days, when Al Davis and Lamar Hunt were trading barbs like prize fighters. It's enough to make you long for the days of the Holy Roller or that 1976 playoff heartbreaker. Speaking of which, let's take a breath and rewind the clock, because you can't talk Raiders without tipping your hat to the ghosts of gridiron's past. This franchise, it's woven into the fabric of football lore. Born in Oakland in 1960 as the Oakland Raiders, those misfit pirates in silver and black, they embodied the underdog spirit from day one. Al Davis, the rebel owner who sued the NFL and won, built a dynasty on commitment to excellence and a no-holds-barred style. 2 Super Bowl rings in the 70s and 80s, with legends like Jim Plunkett slinging it to Cliff Branch, and that steel curtain-crushing defense anchored by Howie Long and Ted Hendricks. Remember the Autumn Wind poem? Today the frost is on the pumpkin in the fields of Jack Benny, pure poetry for a team that played like poets with sledgehammers. Then came the moves, to Los Angeles in '82, back to Oakland in '95, and finally, that seismic shift to Las Vegas in 2020. Allegiant Stadium, with its torch-lit facade and that insane torch that shoots flames during touchdowns, it's a fitting home for a team that's always burned bright, even in the shadows. And oh, the rivalries! The AFC West is a blood feud wrapped in a conference. Against the Chiefs? It's personal. Think the 1960s AFL Wars, or that 2020 playoff gut punch. The Chargers, brothers in black, but always biting at the heels, from Dan Fouts to Justin Herbert. Broncos, the orange crush that crushed our dreams more times than we care to count. These aren't just games, they're vendettas, and right now, with the Chiefs at 3-1 and the Chargers lurking at 2-2, the Raiders are playing catch-up in a division that's as stacked as a Vegas blackjack table. Now, amid the gloom, are there silver linings? You bet your lucky horseshoe there are. Let's spotlight the stars keeping this ship afloat. Max Crosby, man, what a beast. The edge rusher out of Eastern Michigan, drafted in the 4th round back in 2019, has been a revelation. 13 sacks last year, and already 4 through 4 games this season. He's not just chasing quarterbacks, he's hunting souls. Picture this, 6 feet 5 inches, 265 pounds of pure fury, with that signature beard and that motor that doesn't quit. Crosby's the heart of this defense, the guy who embodies the just win, baby ethos Al Davis preached. He's been double-teamed on every snap lately, yet he still disrupts like a force of nature. Raiders Nation chants his name like a war cry, Max Crosby. Historically, this feels eerily familiar. Remember 2021? Rich Bisaccia steps in mid-season, goes 6-4, nearly sneaks into the playoffs. Or 2018 with Gruden's splashy return, flames out in 39 games. The Raiders haven't had a coach last more than 2 full seasons since Norv Turner in the 90s. At 1-3, with a strength of schedule that's only going to toughen up, next week's Ravens, then the Bills, the pressure's mounting. Playoff odds. According to the sharpest minds at ESPN's Football Power Index, it's 8.2%, down from 25% after Week 1. 4th straight year on the outside looking in? That stings, especially with a fan base that's packed 62,000 strong into Allegiant every Sunday, waving those pirate flags like it's 1976 all over again. To add some flavor, let's imagine a quick huddle with the voices that matter. Picture this, I'm ringside at Raiders HQ, mic in hand. Max, 3 games in, what's the vibe? Crosby, sweat still dripping, grins that wolfish grin. Look, we're pissed, but that's fuel. Pete's got the fire, age ain't nothing, but a number when you're scheming up ways to wreck QBs. Raider Nation, we feel you. Next one's ours. Cut to Jeanty, fresh off that 128-yard clinic. Early jitters? Gone. This O-line's my family now. Gino's slinging it, Pete's calling it, we're about to hit the gas. And from the stands, a diehard from the Oakland days, bandana tied tight, Carroll? He's Al Davis reincarnate, old school grit. We've weathered worse. Just win, baby. Win for the nation. Expert takes. Fictional, but grounded, say, from Mel Kiper Jr. on draft implications. If this skid continues, Davis eyes the board early. But with Jeanty emerging, they could trade down, stockpile picks. Playoffs. Long shot, but a wild card run? Stranger things have happened in this division. Or Bucky Brooks on NFL Network, Carroll's clock management screams, Vintage Pete. But in 2025? It's chess versus checkers against McVay and Shanahan. Adapt or bust. Looking ahead, the implications are seismic. A fourth straight playoff miss? It'd be the longest drought since the 90s lean years, post-Super Bowl glory. Draft position. Top 10 Ts. Maybe a franchise QB if Geno falters, though who'd bench the guy who led Seattle to the divisional round? Coaching Carousel 2.0? If Simmons is right, spring 2026 could see Kellen Moore or Liam Cohen calling plays. But here's my bold prediction. They rattle off 3 straight wins starting with Baltimore.
Why?
Crosby heats up, Jeanty explodes for 150+, and Geno reminds us why Carroll chose him. Playoffs. 22% shot, but in Raiderland, that's all we need. Tiebreaker over Denver, steal one from KC, boom, January football under those torch flames. Folks, this is why we love the Raiders. The chaos, the comebacks, the unyielding spirit that turns doubters into believers. Pete Carroll might be 73, but his fire's eternal, just like the autumn wind that sweeps through Allegiant. Raider Nation, this skid? It's a setup for the surge. Tune in Sunday. Watch Geno air it out, Crosby hunt, Jeanty run wild. Grab your black hole jersey, crack a cold one, and chant it loud, just win, baby. This is the Raiders Report. I'm your anchor, signing off from the edge of glory. Stay silver, stay black, and we'll see you on the flip side.